你想成为一个名副其实的白领吗？你想拥有一份令人羡慕的高薪工作吗？
Guarantee you one phone line at any given time. This is your committed information rate. But I have technology available that says if home number one gets on the phone line and it takes up its one phone line and it has to make another call, simply somebody gets on another phone and dials out, and now I have two simultaneous calls coming from home number one because 2 and 3 aren't using their phone lines. And then let's say a third person wants to get on the phone and make a call as well. Simply pick up the phone and make your call. I have 3 conversations coming from home number one. Its committed information rate was 1 call, but it's able to burst up to 3. Now let's say at a given time, home number 2 picks up the phone because it wants to make a call. As soon as it picks up the phone, it gets its one dedicated line, and this second line, that is disconnected, that conversation. And now it gets its committed information rate, home number 2 does, of 1 phone call, but home number 1 still has an extra one because 3 isn't using his. Wouldn't it be a wonderful world if frame relay technology was developed into the phone network and let's just say our community? Now let's apply that technology into our network that we developed earlier, remembering that this is our frame relay cloud complete with switches in the backbone. Routers will exist in communities of interest. In other words, this will be R3 and R4. All 3 of these routers can have connections into this common switch. And what that switch says is, I have a big fat pipe into the frame relay network. You can use more than your committed information rate, in other words, more than you're actually paying for, as long as the other parties in your communities of interest aren't using theirs. And you can burst for a specific period of time up to the point that they need their committed information rate. Now, one of the coolest aspects of this whole thing is that you don't even know your neighbors. Where here you would in our analogy. These are separate companies. R1 is a connection into your company. These other companies that you are able to burst into their bandwidth, you have no idea who they are and you don't really even care. In the last section of this nugget, I'm going to give you a configuration example of basic frame relay. Let me familiarize you with our diagram here. We're going to have 2 routers involved. Router number 1 and router number 2, obviously going through a frame relay switch. Now what we want to encapsulate is IP traffic. So I had to assign IP addresses. 192.168.2.1 exists here on router 1. 192.168.2.2 exists here on router 2. This is further evidence that even though this seems like a layer 3 device, in other words, it can be a router, it's operating at layer 2 because there's no IP addresses assigned within the interfaces on this router. Alright, the other thing I had to set up, obviously, is encapsulation frame relay. I hit enter here so we use the default, which is Cisco, which is fine because I'm between 2 Cisco devices. And then frame relay interface DELC. I have to assign DELCs. I'm going to assign 201 here at router number 1, and then DELC 202 at router number 2. Keep in mind that as we've gone through this nugget, in router number 1, we've already entered these commands as we went over them individually. Let me show you that. Here within router number 1, we're going to show configuration, and the first thing we're going to get is the first 2 Ethernets. So let's go into serial 0 configuration. And that's where we see that we did indeed set up encapsulation frame relay, as we see up here, and then the frame relay interface DELC is already set to 201, which is exactly what we said we needed within our diagram. Now we're going to go into router 2 and do the exact same thing. I'm in the privilege mode here. Let me get into configuration. And the difference here is we're going to use a different interface. It's going to be interface serial 1, but we're still going to go forward with exactly the same commands we used for frame relay setup in the other router. So encap, short for encapsulation, frame dash relay, enter there, and we're opting for the Cisco relay encapsulation, and then we set up frame dash relay interface that cannot be abbreviated dash DELC, and then we're going to opt for DELC 202 here at this router. Alright, let's close that down, and then we're done with our configuration on router number 2. Next, we have to verify our connectivity, make sure we set everything up okay, and the way we're going to do that is with our old friend the ping command. We've set up IP addresses, so we're going to ping from router 1 over to IP address 192.168.2.2, and that's how we're going to verify connectivity. So let's do that up here. Get outside of the show conf that we had running there, and then ping 192.168.2.2, hit enter, and there you go. We have connectivity. Let's do the same thing with router number 2. Bring it up so that we can see our diagram. Ping the opposite end, 192.168.2.1, and we have connectivity there as well. A myriad of show commands also exist that can be used whenever we're troubleshooting frame relay networks, so we don't have to rely on the ping command to verify connectivity across, but that's going to be covered in a later nugget, troubleshooting frame relay. We started this nugget with a look at the history that led up to the development of frame relay, and the fact that X.25, although that technology could handle bursty traffic, because of the advanced error recovery, it wasn't fast enough. We needed less latency. Then we looked at the terminology and the devices involved in a frame relay network, followed by the two types of encapsulation that we can opt for with a Cisco router, and that was the Cisco proprietary encapsulation and also the IETF encapsulation. Then we saw the function and form of the DELC, the data link connection identifier, as it's used within frame relay. We discussed committed information rate and the fact that if the telephone network operated the same way, it'd be a much better world. And then we ended up with a configuration example that showed you router 1 and router 2 both configured for frame relay, and the fact that we could verify connectivity across that network with the ping command. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.